Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Halsey. For this presentation, I'm going to be looking at the current thinking around technology leadership in K-12 education and connecting it to what I'm already seeing within my own professional role as an educational technology coordinator. For this assignment, I used COSIN's framework of essential skills of the K-12 CTO as a lens for thinking about technology leadership in schools. What stood out to me most in this reading was how broadly technology leadership is defined today. The framework moves far beyond the idea of technology leadership being limited to troubleshooting or device management. Instead, it focuses on leadership communication, instructional support, organizational changes, professional learning, and strategic planning. As I worked through the framework, I found myself constantly connecting it back to the situations I'm already seeing in schools and in my day to day work. So instead of simply summarizing the reading, I want to focus more on how technology leadership actually appears in practice within my workspace and what strengths, tensions, and opportunities I'm noticing. One of the biggest takeaways I had from this week's reading is how much educational technology leadership has changed over time. I think many people still picture educational technology roles as primarily technical positions focused on fixing devices, managing networks, or troubleshooting issues. While those responsibilities are still important, the framework really emphasizes that technology leadership today is more and more strategic and people centered. Technology leaders are now expected to support instruction, coordinate professional learning, guide organizational change, think through data privacy concerns, and help schools navigate emerging technologies like AI. What really resonated with me is that technology decisions now affect nearly every part of a school system. They impact communication, instruction, assessment, workflow, accessibility, and even campus culture. I think that shift is especially visible in schools right now because technology is no longer something happening on the side. It's fully embedded into teaching, learning, and daily operations. In my current role as an educational technology coordinator, I support multiple secondary and elementary campuses with instructional technology, troubleshooting, communication systems, and professional learning. A large part of my role currently involves helping teachers navigate Canvas and PowerSchool workflows, troubleshooting syncing issues, supporting Chromebook systems, and helping campuses think through support structures for next year. One thing I've realized very quickly is that technology leadership honestly involves much more relationship building and communication than I had originally expected. Teachers are balancing a lot already, and technology can either feel supportive or overwhelming depending on how it's implemented and communicated. Because of that, a huge part of the role is helping people feel comfortable asking questions, working through challenges, and adapting to change without feeling judged. The framework repeatedly emphasizes communication, collaboration, and change management. And honestly, I'm already seeing how critical those areas really are in practice. One area where I see a really strong connection between the reading and my workplace is instructional leadership. A lot of the work I do may look technical on the surface, but it directly impacts instruction and the classroom experience. For example, helping teachers with Canvas and PowerSchool syncing affects grading accuracy, communication with families, and teacher workflow. Supporting Chromebook expectations and classroom technology procedures also impacts how smoothly instruction runs day to day. What stood out to me in the framework is that it consistently connects technology back to educational goals rather than focusing on tools themselves. I think one thing schools are still learning is that meaningful technology integration isn't about simply adding more technology. Technology only becomes valuable when it actually supports instruction, reduces barriers, or helps teachers work more effectively. Professional learning is another major part of this. Teachers are much more willing to engage with technology when support feels practical, approachable, and connected to their real classroom needs. I've already heard several complaints and fears about my stepping into this role from teachers because so many times in the past they've been told, this is a technology, use it, figure it out. I'm now having to combat that of saying things like, I understand your frustration, I understand your fears. Here's how I'm going to support you as a person, as a teacher, as an educator, to make sure you don't feel overwhelmed. It's something I've been thinking about a lot more in my own role because successful technology leadership seems to depend just as much on supporting people as it does understanding the systems. Another major technology leadership part in my workplace that involves the systems management and operational leadership. This is probably the area most people traditionally associate with educational technology roles because it includes troubleshooting, systems coordination, device management, and workflow organization. And honestly, right now, it's been my bridge in getting my foot in the door with teachers and with administrators by starting off with this small piece. In my own work, as I've said earlier, I've spent a lot of time working through Canvas and PowerSchool syncing issues, helping with account access, and thinking through organizational systems like a Chromebook tracking system that we're piloting with one of our campuses this year. What I'm realizing more and more, though, is that these issues are never really just technical. When systems fail or become confusing, it directly impacts teachers, students, communication, grading timelines, and classroom instruction. Reliable systems create the conditions that allow instruction to run smoothly. One thing the framework helped reinforce for me is how interconnected school systems really are now. Schools rely heavily on so many different platforms for communicating correctly with one another, and even small workflow issues can create larger frustrations across campus. We saw this recently with the Canvas security breach and how one program disconnecting changed a whole workflow for our progress reports that were coming out that week. The fear and the frustration and the confusion by teachers, administrators, and even parents was huge. And the fact that I was communicating even small updates throughout the course of that breach really did get me some positive feedback coming back from teachers of, thank you for the updates, thank you for keeping us informed, and it helped me build those relationships that we spoke about earlier. I think that operational leadership is often overlooked in conversations about educational technology, but it does play a huge role in supporting the overall learning environment. Something I've been thinking about a lot also while stepping into this new role is how relationship-based technology leadership really is. Honestly, many technology challenges are not purely technical problems. They're often connected to communication, uncertainties, stress, inconsistent systems, or people simply feeling overwhelmed, like I mentioned earlier. One example that I'm implementing is the use of office hours model that we're implementing across campuses next year. The purpose isn't just troubleshooting, it's creating a more approachable and visible support system where teachers feel comfortable asking questions and receiving help. I've also spent time meeting with principals and campus leadership teams to better understand what each campus needs. One thing I'm noticing very quickly is that every campus has different comfort levels with technology, different systems, and different concerns. The framework talks a lot about communication, collaboration, and supporting organizational change. And I honestly think those may be some of the most important leadership skills in educational technology today. Technology leadership really can't happen in isolation because every technology decision impacts people in some way. Using this framework as a lens helped me identify several strengths and opportunities within my current professional setting. One strength I see is the emphasis on collaboration and responsive teacher support. There's a strong effort to make technology support feel approachable and practical rather than intimidating. I also think there's a growing recognition that EdTech leadership should connect directly to instruction and classroom needs rather than functioning separately from teaching and learning. At the same time, there are definitely challenges and opportunities from growth. One challenge is scalability. Supporting multiple campuses while also trying to build proactive systems can be difficult when immediate troubleshooting needs are happening constantly. I also think that there's an opportunity to build more long-term professional learning systems instead of relying so heavily on reactive support. AI readiness is another area that still feels very much in progress. Conversations are happening, but many schools are still working through what thoughtful and ethical implementation should look like in practice. Overall, the framework helped me better understand how interconnected technology leadership really is across instruction, communication, systems, and organizational culture, and has shifted how I have approached conversations with getting curriculum departments and technology departments to work together to help build a strong foundation for our teachers. One final element of the framework that feels especially relevant right now is AI and emerging technology challenges. AI conversations are happening everywhere in education right now, and I think many schools are trying to figure out what responsible implementation looks like. In my own personal professional context, I'm already seeing both excitement and an uncertainty from educators. Some teachers are eager to experiment with AI tools, while others are concerned about academic integrity, ethical use, accessibility, or how AI may impact learning. What I appreciate about the framework is that it consistently emphasizes thoughtful leadership and responsible decision making rather than simply adopting technology because it's new. I think educational technology leaders are going to play a major role in helping schools navigate these conversations in balanced and intentional ways moving forward. Tech leadership now involves helping schools evaluate innovation critically while also thinking through privacy, communication, equity, and long term instructional impact. Overall, this week's reading expanded my understanding of technology leadership quite a bit. Before reading the framework, I already understood that EdTech leadership involved more than technical support, but the reading really emphasized how connected this work is to instruction, communication, organizational culture, and long term change, as I've referenced several times throughout this presentation. As I reflected on the framework, I realized how many aspects of my current role already align with these larger leadership ideas, especially around collaboration, instructional support, and again, communication and organizational systems, because all of those are so interconnected and important to the overall structure of our school system. One of my biggest takeaways, though, is that effective technology leadership is ultimately about supporting people through change. The technology itself matters, but the larger goal is helping educators and students communicate, work, and learn more effectively within constantly evolving environments. As schools continue navigating AI, digital transformation, and changing instructional expectations, I think thoughtful and relationship-centered technology leadership is only going to become more and more important moving forward. Thank you so much for listening, and if you have any questions, please let me know. My reference will be on the next slide.